On a cool autumn night in 2023, a crowd gathers beneath the iconic neon Egyptian blade sign, buzzing with anticipation. After a 2-year closure for extensive restoration, Hollywood's oldest movie palace, the Egyptian Theater, is once again open for show business. Film lovers queue in the open-air courtyard, marveling at the hieroglyphics and massive columns that evoke an ancient temple. This historic venue, now 101 years old, has been reborn, bridging the golden age of silent film with the era of streaming entertainment. In the early 1920s, Hollywood was still finding its footing as the world's film capital. Real estate developer Charles Toberman and flamboyant showman Sid Grauman set out to build a grand movie house on Hollywood Boulevard, then a dusty stretch that had been a lemon ranch not long before. The result was the Egyptian Theater, built in an extravagant Egyptian revival style, adorned with hieroglyphic murals, lotus-topped columns, and a giant winged scarab above the proscenium. It was an inspired choice. Just 1 month after the theater's October 1922 debut, archaeologist Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Tutankhamun, sparking a worldwide Egyptomania. The theme was suddenly the height of fashion, and Los Angeles had its very own temple of cinema. From its opening night, the Egyptian Theater introduced a new kind of Hollywood magic. The premiere of Douglas Fairbanks' swashbuckling Robin Hood on October 18, 1922, was an extravagant affair. Stars arrived to the spectacle of Klieg searchlights crisscrossing the sky and the flash of news cameras, Hollywood's first ever red carpet movie premiere. Grauman, ever the showman, staged an elaborate live prologue before the film. A replica of Robin Hood's Notting Hill Castle was erected on the Egyptian stage, and costumed actors performed a medieval pageant to set the mood. In the courtyard, glamorous patrons paraded past Egyptian-themed decor as an army of press photographers looked on from above. It was the birth of Hollywood's signature movie premiere tradition, complete with the spotlights and glamour that soon became synonymous with Tinseltown. The Egyptian was more than just a movie house. It was a stage for Hollywood to mythologize itself. Before each screening, Grauman wowed audiences with exotic stage spectacles he called prologues, featuring singers, dancers, live orchestras, and elaborate props. Grauman had a Bedouin guard and full desert regalia parade along the rooftop to count down the minutes to showtime, and he even once parked a life-size elephant in the courtyard to promote a 1924 epic film. The clever use of an outdoor forecourt, one of the first of its kind, designed to blur the line between sidewalk and spectacle, turned the theater itself into a public advertisement. The show effectively started on the sidewalk, drawing curious passersby in to see what the fuss was about. America was still emerging from World War I and the 1918 flu pandemic, and Anginolo's craved communal escape as the Roaring Twenties took off. The Egyptian Theater created a sense of accessible opulence for ordinary people, offering a beautiful, exotic, transportive experience for the price of a ticket. Going into a movie palace with ushers gave you that sensation, to live like a king and queen for the price of a ticket, film historian Ross Melnick said of the era. By offering everyday people a few hours of exotic fantasy, the Egyptian Theater helped transform Hollywood from a sleepy suburb into a state of mind. For Los Angeles, the Egyptian's opening was a turning point. Up to then, New York had dominated the film industry, but Hollywood's ambitions were validated when stars and studios flocked to Grauman's fantastical venue. The Egyptian essentially consecrated Hollywood's launch as the movie capital of the world. By the decade's end, Grauman had opened the even grander Chinese Theater nearby, and Hollywood Boulevard's era of themed movie palaces was in full swing. Through the ensuing decades, Grauman's Egyptian remained a centerpiece of Hollywood's entertainment circuit, hosting everything from Charlie Chaplin comedies to Cecil B. DeMille epics in its first run. It was also a pioneer in film technology. By 1926, the Egyptian was the first West Coast theater equipped for talking pictures, and it would later be retrofitted for ever larger widescreen epics, albeit at the cost of some of its original architectural features. Over the years, seating capacity dwindled and much of the ornate plasterwork was removed or obscured in the name of progress. Still, the show went on. The Egyptian continued drawing crowds for blockbuster events. Return of the Jedi packed the house in 1983, proving the old palace could still spark excitement. By the mid-1980s, however, Hollywood's first temple of cinema was showing its age. Deferred maintenance and the rise of modern multiplexes left the Egyptian faded and worn. In 1985, it earned a spot on the National Register of Historic Places, but that honor couldn't save it from the forces of nature. The Northridge earthquake in January 1994 shook the Egyptian to its foundations, leaving it severely damaged and unsafe to enter. After 72 years of continuous operation, the theater went dark. United Artists eventually sold the shuttered theater to the city of Los Angeles. For a time, it looked like the final reel had played for this Hollywood icon. Salvation arrived from an unlikely source, a scrappy non-profit of cinephiles. The American Cinematheque, a local film society devoted to classic and art house cinema, struck a deal to rescue the Egyptian. In 1996, the city sold the deteriorating theater to the Cinematheque for the token sum of $1, with the caveat that the group would restore and reopen it to the public. Raising millions in grants and donations, the nonprofit embarked on an ambitious rehabilitation. The Egyptian's facade and courtyard were lovingly returned to their 1920s glory, erasing decades of grime and later alterations. For better or worse, the 1998 renovation significantly altered the interior. A new lobby and concession area were carved out. A tiny 78-seat screening room was tucked into the rear, and a modern stadium-style seating plan, complete with a newly built balcony, was inserted into the historic auditorium. These updates reduced the capacity to about 615 and covered up many original details. Some decorative hieroglyphics were recreated in plaster, and other features were hidden behind acoustic panels. In the end, such compromises ensured the Egyptian could reopen as a working cinema rather than face demolition or conversion to other uses. In December 1998, the Egyptian Theater triumphantly reopened with a gala screening of Cecil B. DeMille's 1923 silent, The Ten Commandments, the same film that had premiered there 75 years earlier. A capacity crowd filled the theater, listening to a live orchestra accompany the epic just as audiences in the 1920s had experienced. For the next 2 decades, American Cinematheque operated the Egyptian as a cinephile's cathedral, hosting film festivals, director Q&As, and repertory screenings under the gaze of that great winged scarab on the ceiling. Yet, as a nonprofit in an increasingly corporate entertainment landscape, the Cinematheque struggled to keep the aging movie palace financially afloat. By 2019, the Egyptian needed another infusion of funds for critical renovations. Roof leaks and technical issues had crept in over the years. Running a single-screen 1,600-seat theater in the 21st century had become an expensive labor of love. The stage was set for an unlikely white knight to swoop in from the cutting edge of media. The unlikely savior was Netflix, the streaming giant often blamed for luring audiences away from brick-and-mortar cinemas. In a twist worthy of Hollywood, Netflix agreed to buy the Egyptian theater from the American Cinematheque in 2020, promising to restore the venue to its former glory. The sale, reportedly for $14.4 million, stirred debate in the film community. Devotees fretted about a beloved art house falling into corporate hands. Some worried that a for-profit owner might sanitize the eclectic programming in favor of red carpet events and Netflix's own premieres. But faced with mounting costs and the possibility that the Egyptian might be lost entirely, Cinematheque's leaders saw the deal as a lifeline. As Grant Moninger of the Cinematheque later admitted, without Netflix, the Egyptian could have been a nightclub. They might never have been able to reopen on their own. Netflix's purchase came with a unique arrangement. The American Cinematheque retained weekend programming rights, while Netflix would use weekdays for its own film premieres and special events. In effect, the plan ensured the Egyptian would still serve the public as a cinema, even as Netflix gained a prestigious foothold in Hollywood. With funding secured, a massive restoration began in late 2020. Netflix ultimately poured upwards of $70 million into a top-to-bottom overhaul. Preservation experts were thrilled to find that many of the 1990s alterations could be reversed. Those additions had been designed to be removable, a case study in reversibility, as city officials noted. Walls and seating added in 1998 were peeled away, revealing long-hidden original details. The cramped second screening room was demolished, returning the layout to a single large auditorium and allowing for an expanded lobby and concession space. The 90s-era balcony was taken out as well, bringing the auditorium closer to its 1922 one-level configuration. The theater's capacity is now 516 seats, more intimate than the Roaring Twenties original, but far more comfortable for today's patrons. Crews restored Egyptian-style murals and vibrant color to the decor, and modern engineering brought the building up to current seismic and technical standards. Outside, the facade's colorful hieroglyphics and towering pylons were fully restored, and the Egyptian signature red neon blade sign once again cast its glow onto Hollywood Boulevard. After pandemic delays and painstaking work, the Egyptian Theater finally reopened in November 2023 with appropriate fanfare. Netflix christened the renovated theater with a premiere of a new Hollywood thriller, followed by a series of classic 70mm screenings hosted by the Cinematheque. The saga of Grauman's Egyptian theater is, at its heart, the story of Hollywood itself. A century ago, this theater turned temple helped put Hollywood on the map by marrying architecture, spectacle, and celebrity into an intoxicating new ritual. Over the years, it weathered earthquakes, economic slumps, technological revolutions, and shifting tastes, only to be reborn each time, phoenix-like, thanks to passionate patrons of cinema. In its latest chapter, 21st Century Media Company has become the guardian of a 20th century landmark, blending old-fashioned showmanship with new era investment.